We all know the character, the cold, brilliant, effortlessly charming serial killer that dominates true crime podcasts and Hollywood thrillers. But if you sat down in a clinical setting and asked a licensed psychiatrist to formally diagnose someone with that specific condition, they couldn't do it. You will not find the word psychopath anywhere in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, the gold standard reference for mental health professionals. The term operates a lot like the concept of insanity or a split personality. These are legal definitions and pop culture tropes, rather than recognized medical diagnoses, which means our primary vocabulary for describing the darkest corners of human behavior is, clinically speaking, completely made up. The terminology started in the 1800s. The original Greek root was used by early psychiatrists as a catch-all placeholder that essentially meant mind illness. By the 1920s, researchers wanted to study traits like manipulation and a lack of empathy. To do this, they needed test subjects, so they went to the people they could easily find: prison inmates. Because their entire sample consisted of convicted criminals, the resulting data was heavily skewed. It permanently linked these psychological traits with violent criminality in the public imagination. Hollywood quickly seized on the concept. Because it isn't an official clinical diagnosis, writers can safely demonize the label to create a compelling villain without facing backlash from the medical community. The modern profile we fear today is the result of early sample bias, optimized over decades by lazy screenwriting. The psychiatric field abandoned that old placeholder and landed on a structured diagnosis: antisocial personality disorder. Diagnosing ASPD is strict. A patient must be at least 18 with a documented history of severe behavioral problems starting before age 15. The daily reality of ASPD is rarely glamorous. It typically involves chronic impulsivity, repeated deceitfulness, and an inability to hold down a job or pay debts, rather than calculated criminal mastery. People often point to high-profile serial killers like Ted Bundy as the ultimate exception. But when Bundy was evaluated, psychiatrists utilized a very specific, specialized tool called the Psychopathy Checklist-Revised. That checklist is a forensic research tool designed to measure specific emotional and interpersonal traits for the justice system. It is not a standalone mental health disorder. Even the famous charm scored on that checklist is usually a shallow, highly practiced performance designed to control a situation or manipulate a victim. Real clinical ASPD exists on a highly varied spectrum of everyday behavior. It is far more complex than a cookie-cutter supervillain template. This media obsession actively blinds us to how these traits actually manifest in everyday society. Extreme fearlessness and a lack of remorse don't automatically lead to a prison cell. Often, they are the exact qualities that help someone aggressively climb the corporate ladder and succeed in high-stakes environments. There is also a massive demographic blind spot. Women with these traits frequently avoid the criminal justice system altogether, utilizing subtle social manipulation, workplace bullying, and targeted rumor campaigns. Because these tactics don't involve physical aggression or fit the traditional masculine profile, they fly completely under the radar of our society's threat detection. By constantly scanning the room for a movie monster, we completely miss the toxic manipulators sitting quietly nearby. This misunderstanding escalates from a cultural blind spot to a severe legal problem in the courtroom, where a fictional media label carries life or death weight. In capital sentencing hearings, prosecutors sometimes use the results of that forensic checklist to argue that a defendant poses a permanent future danger to society. This chart visualizes jury outcomes based on language used in court. Applying this loaded label severely prejudices a jury toward selecting the death penalty. But experts warn these checklist scores actually lack the ability to predict serious violence while incarcerated. When we finally drop the fictional labels, we force our legal system to judge the complex reality of human behavior, rather than simply executing a myth.